Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures. And today we're doing another part of our Planet Zoo mod spotlights. This will be part 236, so we're really getting up there in the numbers, man. So this is, Planet Zoo mod spotlights where we take a look at some of the wonderful mods people will be making and use them to talk about, some of the wonderful biodiversity that we share our world with. So today we're actually going to be covering quite a few butterflies because Lorby has released the butterfly pack. And then we've got GreatCakesMods with a couple ones to finish off. So don't worry, we're not going to be just having a butterfly filled pack today. We're going to have a couple other things. So let's get started. So let's have a look at our first butterfly. This is the African monarch. So let's see if we can find one flying around in their camera. It's quite pretty. This is the African monarch. It's the Stenarus crassiptus, which also is named the plain tiger or the African queen. These guys are a butterfly widespread in Asia, Australia, and, as you guessed it, Africa. So they belong to the family Danaidae, subfamily of the brush-footed butterflies family Nymphalidae, and they primarily consume plants in the genus Alceptus, which are basically the milkweeds, very similar to, monarch butterflies, which you're probably more familiar with as well. And they contain toxic compounds, which is often consumed in storms within butterflies, so it's not something unweird, and because of it, it's unpalatable to predators. As a species, it's widely mimicked by other species of butterflies, and the plain tiger inhabits a wide variety of habitats, though it's less likely to be found in jungle-like conditions, but more often in wide open areas. And there's 3 different subspecies, and concentrated in certain regions. We'll get into that. So, these guys are a medium-sized butterfly with a wingspan of about 7 to 8 centimeters, or about 2.8 to 3.1 inches. Body is black and white as well. The wings are brownish orange as well, black with white spots. The wings are brownish orange. The upper side is brighter and richer than the underside. Pretty standard for most butterflies. And a typical half of the forewing is black with a white band, and the hind wing has 3 black spots at its center. The wings are bordered in black and outlined with semicircular white spots, and they do show some slight sexual dimorphism, with a male having larger scent glands on the hind wing, or the female lacks them. And they also have a larger black spot on the white center that's viewed from the underside, so you can kind of see that going on there. Very, very cool. So they're actually a polymorphic species, so the colouring and patterning can vary a bit in different populations. But yes, as I mentioned, they've found pretty much the African population is the predominant subspecies, is Alceptus, and then they range the majority of Asia into the Indian subcontinent, as well as even parts of Australia and other parts of the South Pacific. The nominate subspecies is more commonly found throughout Asia and some parts in Africa, while Eulentus is found in more tropical African regions such as the Madagascar and the Seychelles as well. That's quite cool as well. It prefers arid open habitats, but can be found in a variety of habitats such as deserts, mountains, deciduous forests, and human-tended gardens around cities and parks. And they actually live quite high. It's from sea level to about 1,500 meters above sea level. And as I mentioned, they mostly feed on those milkweed plants, lots of different species. But adults will feed on nectar, very similar to a lot of other butterflies, with different plants throughout their range at different times of year. I'm not going to go too much into that. Like other butterflies, they lay their eggs on the underside of a leaf, and are also most often laid close to the ground. And the eggs of these little plain tigers are about 1.7 millimeters long and about 0.5 across, white, and then they gradually turn brown. And then the eggs will hatch at about 3 to 5 days, depending on the temperature. The young larvae go through about 5 instars, with the first instar being about 4 millimeters, the second one being 8, and then when they grow up to be grey with black horizontal stripes, unlike the monarch butterfly, which has yellow as well. The coloration remains for the final 3 instars, and then the third instar is about 14 millimeters, and then the fourth, 25, and the fifth about 36 millimeters. And depending on the larval temperature, the larval stage can last for about 12 to 20 days. Then they go into a chrysalis that takes about 9 to 15 days, depending on temperature. They pupate and become an adult butterfly. And they're very similar, as I mentioned, in size. and then they fly around, and they can live. Males can live for about 10 to 15 days, and females about 15 to 12. So very, very interesting. We'll see if we can have one flying around as we talk about some more things about them. There we go. There's one flying. So most predators are really early in the developmental stage. So the arthropods like spiders, cockroaches, things like that, and even other caterpillars will eat the eggs. Adult predators tend to be birds, such as the fiscal shrike. And they're also threatened by parasites and diseases. What's really cool is that coloration they have there, that bright orange, is actually mimicked by a lot of other species, since, those bright colors mean don't eat me, I'm poisonous, because I mentioned they do have the milkweed, so a lot of other species of butterfly mimic them because they are unpalatable. And this is when a palatable species, so Bayesian mimicry is when a species that's edible mimics a species that's not. So there are species of butterfly that mimic the African monarch, which is definitely, unpalatable because of the milkweed. It's toxic, you can't eat it. So these guys mimic them to have them as well. And that kind of helps them as well. There's also Malarian mimicry, where all unpalatable evolved to resemble one another. So it's basically a simple color in the ecosystem says, hey, this is not edible. But as I mentioned, there are a few different subspecies. So the subspecies that we know, that's the nominates from Mediterranean, northern tropical Africa. The other ones from Cape Verde Islands through tropical Africa to Yemen and Oman. And then the Orlantis from kind of South tropical Africa into the Seychelles and all that stuff. And one of them is actually considered to be its own subspecies. And there's actually another one that was originally considered its own subspecies. Penita, which was the less wanderer, is now considered its own species. But there is kind of some evolution suggesting they may be split into different subspecies, with some local forms potentially becoming their own species, some becoming species, stuff like that. So it'll be very interesting. And courtship and mating for them is the alkaloids, as we mentioned, they're quite necessary since they're able to synthesize pheromones that are stored in hair, pencil sheaths, and the LR organs, which are specialized scales on the top wing that allow them to spread pheromones, and it allows them to attract females. So that's very interesting as well. They do sometimes mate with other subspecies, but they prefer to mate with butterflies within the same subspecies. So I think that's quite cool. And females have been reported mating up to 4 times. So yeah, very cool. Another type of butterfly. Let's have a look at the next one. So the next one's called the blue tiger. The blue tiger butterfly. So let's have a look at you. Real beautiful colours these guys have got. So the blue tiger. So the blue tiger, this guy's a species of butterfly found in South Asia and Southeast Asia, and also belongs to the family of the bush-footed butterfly Nymphalidae. Most specifically, the part of the crowns and tigers of Dalat group. So it's also migratory, and it's also found in southern India. So these guys are quite a small butterfly with quite wide wings. Its wingspan's about 90 to 100 millimeters. With the males being smaller than females. The upper side of the wing is dark brown with these bluish colours as well, and there's like lines and spots that are bluish, and the underside you can see it's a little whitish on the side as well. And all these butterflies can actually absorb heat from the sun via their wings to facilitate autonomous flight. So they're actually able to take in heat through the colours. Studies also show that the blue tiger butterfly shows this high intensity light, specifically increased flight activity. So blue tigers have a wing surface colour that's comprised of both light and dark colours. And the dark areas of the wing are the heat absorbers that are able to facilitate that flight. On cell 1B of the forewing, as in all the others, they kind of got veins and 2 stripes, and there's a large spot. So that's quite interesting as well. The males differ from the females with a black pocket filled with centered scale glands on cell 1C near the discoid cell on the upper side of the hind wing, so it's kind of a way to tell them apart. But yeah, very, very cool. Again, very similar to the African monarch, they do eat a lot of species in the milkweeds because it helps with the toxins. The larvae are kind of yellowish white. They have 3rd and 12 segments as well. Each pair has a fleshy filament, black and greenish white, with these bars going down them. And the second bar is always broader than the others. So the larval stage is about 1.12 centimeters, or about just under half an inch in length, and weighs about 5 milligrams, but actually grows to about 4 times its weight within 48 hours. And then once they have a pupae, the pupae is green to golden scattered spots and a beaded dorsal crescent. And this species is actually quite common. It's found in Southeast and Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia and South Asia. And in 2019, they actually found one in the Balearic Islands in Europe. So that was a very much a vagrant individual. There's quite a few different subspecies, but I'm not going to go through all of them. And the species has also been known to migrate during the monsoons of southern India. And the migratory population has been observed to be nearly entirely of males. And they're also known to mud puddle during these migrations. So that's a very, very interesting and cute little guy there, little blue tiger. Let's see if we can get one of you flying. Sorry. Let's see if we can get another one of you flying. No one's flying at the moment. There we go. I love these butterflies. I really hope we get them in Planet Zoo too. They can be part of our you know, it's really cool. Part of our aviaries, we can make butterfly houses. That'd be so cool. Okay, next up, we've got another species. So this one is the common Jezebel. So this one's called Delphis inactus, or the common Jezebel. Well, that one's a little bit stuck in there. Let's have a look at you. You're pretty. Oh, look how pretty his underwing. So, the common Jezebel. These guys are a medium-sized purred butterfly found in many parts of South and Southeast Asia, particularly around the non-arid regions of India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Myanmar, and Thailand. And the common Jezebel is one of the most common species in its genus, the Delius, which has approximately 225 described species. So these guys range in size from about 6.5 to 8.5 centimeters long in terms of wingspan. The male, the upper side is white, and the forewing has veins broadly, as you can kind of see there. With the broad back is all that, but you can see under them, they've got these with the yellow bits on the bottom there. And then these kind of red spots. Really gives them a very interesting colour. The females are quite similar, but the black edging is kind of more transverse, and the hindwings are much broader, so very similar in both species. In terms of its range, they are quite nomadic, and they are found in a variety of environments that are included, but not limited to, temperate hill forests, tropical rainforests, dry open woodlands, and beach heatherlands. They are also generally found all over India, except in the desert tracts, up to an altitude of about 7,000 meters, or 7,000 feet, or 2,100 meters in the hills. Its butterflies may be found where there are trees, or even in towns and cities, flying high along the trees and visiting flowers. It is a common species in gardens, and the species can be found flying amongst trees in search of its food plants. And while the males are more frequently observed visiting flowers for nectar, that rests on its wings, closed, exhibiting the brilliantly coloured underside. The Jezebel as well often flies high in the canopy, and just comes down lower only to feed on nectar, so they're quite a high canopy flyer. It has bright colorations, and that shows that it is unpalatable, similar, as I mentioned, to these other two species, because it has toxins that they eat from the host plant that they accumulate in their bodies to make them unpalatable. And like other unpalatable butterflies, they're actually mimicked by another species, the painted sawtooth. So they're mimicked in the orange spots, so the colours, they mimic them so they get avoided by predators. That's very cool. So, in terms of the larvae, they lay their eggs very similar to most other butterflies, but the young are gregarious and in the first few instars, with caterpillars being yellow-brown with a black head, and usually have white tubercles, of which long white hairs arise. Typically, when they're born, they first make a meal of their eggshells and then wander to the leaves. Very similar to most other, little guys. And closely attached to the tail is the pupa, closely attached by the tail and a band generally a vertical surface. So not too dissimilar from other types of butterflies. In terms of food plants, these guys tend to rely a little bit more on parasitic mistletoes, small shrubs that grow from the branches of trees. And their ability to form dense aggregations as caterpillars actually has led to the suggestion they could be used to control for these mistletoes as well. So that's quite cool. So they do still eat those parasitic, plants and, accumulate those toxins. But that, that makes it a bit more safe. Looks really, really cool. So many beautiful butterflies. Anyway, let's carry on. Next up, we have got the orange-barred sulfur. So let's have a look at these guys. So the orange-barred sulfur. So Phoebus felina. So the orange barred sulfur is a species of butterfly actually found in the Americas, including the Caribbean. So they have a wingspan of about 68 to 80 millimeters, and there are 2 and 3 generations per year in Florida, and 1 in the northern parts of their range, with adults on wing from mid to late summer. The species' habitat is tropical shrub, gardens, fields, and forest edges. Orange-barred sulfurs are often found in large densities of mixed groups, such as the stridata sulfur, apricot sulfur, and the straight-line sulfur. And these are species that are specializing in eating nectar from red-colored plants. And the larvae feed on Cassaya species of plants. So they include, types of flowering plants like Cassaceas. That's kind of what they are. But yeah, there's a few different subspecies. Not too much information on them. We'll have a look at the Zoopedia, see if we can get some more. Yeah, typically found medium-sized butterfly with distinct orange markings. Males are particularly vibrant, showing a rich yellow wings with broad orange patterns on the forewing and a narrow dark body, dark border. Females tend to be paler and show more variation in pattern. So that's makes sense. Let's see what more facts we can get. The wings of the orange-barred sulfur can appear different shades depending on the angle of light, sometimes looking almost golden and even slightly greenish when in motion. These butterflies are strong flyers and can be surprisingly difficult to catch due to their fast-starting flight pattern. Though tropical, they are known to migrate northward into the United States during warmer months, occasionally reaching states like Ohio or New York. That's quite interesting. The caterpillars are green and blend in extremely well with the leaves they feed on, helping them avoid birds and other predators. Adults sometimes get covered in pollen while feeding, especially on hibiscus or bolava, I don't even know what that is, giving them a dusty painted look that makes them look even more striking. So yeah, that's quite cool. These are the species they can live with, of course. Really, really cool one. So let's have a look. I'm going to carry on. Let's see. So we can get one. Oh yeah, there we go on the wing. Very, very cool. Definitely a big fan of that one. Okay, so I think we've got one more. The last one we got here is the zebra longwings. Let's have a look at these guys. Oh, that's pretty. Did I not put anything in there? Let me just fix that real quick. That. There we go. So this is Heliconius charithica. So these guys are also known as the zebra longwing or the zebra helicone. These guys are a species of butterfly belonging to the subfamily Heliconidae and the family Nymphalidae. And these guys were actually first described by Carl Linnaeus in 1767's 12th edition of Systematica Naturae. These boldly striped patterns and the white wing pattern are asymptomatic, which warns of predators. And this is also the state butterfly of Florida. So this species is distributed across South and Central America, as far north as southern Texas and peninsula, Florida. And they are migrants north into the American states into the warmer months. So these guys roost communally at nights and can live in groups of up to 60 individuals or 60 adults to hide from predators. The adult butterflies are unusual in feeding in pollen as well as nectar, and the pollen enables them to synthesize cyanogenic glycosides, which makes their body toxic to potential predators. And they even feed on various species of passion flowers, evading the plant's defensive trichomeres by biting them off or laying silk mats onto them. So that's quite cool. So in terms of the colours, they're white with black spots, and they have numerous black spots along their bodies. So you can see very interesting there. Adult bodies are monomorphic, of medium size with long wings, and on the dorsal side, the wings are black with narrow white and yellow stripes, and similar pattern to the ventral side, but paler as with red spots, and they can reach between 72 to 100 millimeters, so decent size. In terms of where they're found, as I mentioned, they can be found in South America, Central America, the West Indies, Mexico, and the southern US. Adults sometimes migrate north to New Mexico, South Carolina, and Nebraska during the winter months. The geographic distribution of H. chanathoria overlaps with a range of other butterflies, which sometimes leads to conflicts. For example, the Gulf flittery overlap. In some cases, have been known to be subject to competition from the local subspecies of the zebra longwing, when those two species have breeding populations in a similar area within the range. It was also declared the official butterfly in the state of Florida in the United States of 1996, and the species frequents tropical hammocks, moist forest edges, and fields. That's quite cool. Although this one is to some extent static, maintaining a home range, adults do move between territories, with butterflies in Mexico origins migrate north into Texas, following the retracting temperature gradient. So it's quite cool as well. As I mentioned, they also roost to deter predators. So they roost in groups of up to 60 on a nightly basis, returning the same roost every night. Solitary individuals or very small roosts also exhibit proper warning signals so to not to attract predators. Pre-roosting interactions, which consist of sitting next to one another, chasing each other briefly while fluttering and basking. These are things, and the reason they do this, the optimum size is about 5 individuals, which seems to display called collective asymptomatism, which helps them all deter predators and protect all 5. Conspecific recognition. The adults form, communal roosts nightly, and communal roosting is when individuals aggregate at a particular site for more than a few hours. Since roosting at night, adults need to be able to see at low light levels, either when looking for twigs, tendrils, and stuff like that. Their eyes also help them recognize color patterns and conspecifics. UV also helps distinguish different types of pigments as well, so they're able to, see UV light, which is very interesting. Pollen feeding is also very interesting because most butterflies simply drink nectar, but these guys also eat pollen. This actually contributes to their longevity. So these guys can live up to 3 months as adults in the wild and in 4 to 5 months in the lab. The behavior facilitated the evolution of asymmetrical mimicry along these butterflies, with butterflies that feed on pollen being more distasteful to predators, more brightly coloured, and show superior mimicry display than others that do not. So they choose their home range based on the collection of pollen plants. The adult will collect pollen by inserting it into its proboscis into the flower while making particular movements to secure adhesion to the pollen grains. And digestion occurs immediately after ingestion when the pollen makes contact with saliva and the amino acids are dissolved. So that's very interesting as well. Pollen feeding is correlated with high overall fitness, so individuals that feed on pollen tend to live longer than those who are fed only nectar or sugar water. Females carry more pollen than males since nutrients such as amino acids from pollen are needed for egg production. Oogenesis is greatly affected by pollen intake. When pollen was absent in a diet, they decrease and lifetime fecundity is dropped significantly. So that not only just helps them make eggs, it also defers them from predators too. So as I mentioned, the cyanogenic clitosides actually helps defend them from predators. And the caterpillars typically feed on the yellow passion flower, other types of passion flowers that we kind of mentioned before. And they feed on the passion flowers on which the mother laid their eggs as well. They also have trinocomes, structures that reduce herbivory by either physically or chemically, and they can avoid them and free themselves from their trap by pulling their legs from the hold or laying silk mats on them to avoid predators as well. That's very interesting. So in terms of their mating systems, they seek, all sorts of different cues during mating. So males will seek visual, olfactory, tactile, and auditory cues. And in some areas, certain host plants provide those cues that influence the time and location of the reproduction. So that's very interesting as well. Strong pheromones as well. Since the pupae are camouflaged like strong pheromones, males rely on olfactory cues on the damaged plant to spot a mate. And a common problem among all butterflies is avoiding mating with a butterfly species. Mistakes are rare and can be distinguished between them because the emissions are different, so they can tell each other apart. Pupal mating. So adults exhibit pupal mating where the males will wait for a female to emerge from a pupae, and upon emergence, 2 or more males may fight to win a copulation. So that's very interesting. Basically, like the butterfly version of really watching the clock, The winner mates with the female and prevents the other male from doing so through a chemical transfer, passing a nutrient spermatophore to the female that reduce her attractiveness to other potential mates. Pupal mating arose exactly once during the evolution of Heliconius, and the species form a clade on the evolutionary tree. Although pupal mating observed to be quite friendly in insectaries, is really seen in nature. Males perform a copulatory mate in guarding behaviour, in which males will find a perch on pupae and followed with a copulation with the female. So that's very interesting as well. There's also nuptial gifts, so the males will transfer a protein-rich spermatophore to females upon mating. So nuptial gifts, they provide chemicals to the mother and future offspring to help them protect them from predators. For the female, it's beneficial because the egg laying depletes her of her defensive chemicals. And along the 9 species, these guys have the highest cyanide concentration in their spermatophores. And because most, what was it saying? In most species of butterfly, these pheromones play quite a crucial role, but they also can play a role in this species for deterring males. So these ones have pheromones that actually reduce the attractiveness of the female. So that means now she's already mated, no one else will kind of want to, go mate with her, which is very interesting as well. And the sex ratio and distribution at eclosion, the ratio is highly female-based, but the rest of the year the sex ratio is overall male or male-biased. This is because males typically stay near their natal sites to find a mate, and while females move around to find oviposition or feeding sites as well. Because females are very mobile, males rarely mate with their relatives, and inbreeding rates are very low. So, very interesting species. It shows that, butterflies may all look the same, but they're actually very, very different. There's a lot of different behaviors going on there. Let's see if we can find a flying one again. No. Here's one flying. Do love to see these butterflies. Quite excited to see them in Planet Zoo. A lot of people, on a side note, a lot of people are worried about how the exhibits are going to turn out in Planet Zoo, but they do have their own tab, so I'm very excited to see what they've done to try and make them a little bit more interesting and, expand on them. Anyway, so that's our last of our butterfly packs. So these 5 species of butterfly, the African monarch, blue tiger, common Jezebel, orange-barred sulphur, and the zebra longwing, they were all done by Lorby as part of his butterfly pack. So really, really awesome pack. I'm really happy that, managed to get that done. But now we're going to be moving on to a couple of Great Cakes mods. We're going to be talking about some actual, habitat animals this time, not just exhibit animals. So we're going to have a look now at the Taruca, which is a really cool animal here, type of deer. So this is also known as the North Andean deer, the North Andean or the Northern Huemul or the Northern Huemul. These guys are a mid-sized deer that inhabit the high regions of the Andes Mountains, which is in South America. The common name actually translates to deer in both the Queneca and Aymara languages, and they're closely related to the Southern Huemul, which is the only other member of the Hippocamelus genus. So as I mentioned, they're a medium-sized deer with a heavy body. It measures about 128 to 146 centimeters, or about 50 to 57 inches from head to rump, with 11 to 13 centimeter tail, or about 4.3 to 5.1 inch, and stands about 60 to 80 centimeters tall, or 70 to 80 centimeters tall, 27 to 31 inches at the shoulder. Adults typically weigh between 69 and 80 kilograms, or 152 to 176 pounds, and with most deer, the males are typically quite a bit larger than the females. So overall, it's got the sandy brown fur over most of its body, with white patches on its underside and of its head, neck, tail, and genital regions, and the intersurface as well. While females often have a dark area on the forehead, facial markings are much clearer in the males. So you can see the male's got that quite clear, almost like bandit mask. The exact patterns can generally between different males, but generally there's a black mask between the nose, or a black Y or V pattern on the forehead or snout. As other deer, only the males will grow antlers, and the longer time of a full-grown male typically measures about 12 inches or about 30 centimeters, a foot long. And unlike other South American deer, except for the closely related huemul, these antlers consist of just 2 tines, which branch at the base, and with the posterior tine being the larger. Males also possess canine teeth in the upper jaw, which female usually, but not always, lack. So sometimes the females can have those canines, but not always. Okay, so distribution. These guys are found only in the Andes Mountains, from central Peru to Bolivia and extreme northeastern Chile and into northern Argentina. It's also believed these guys would have occurred in Ecuador, but no evidence has supported these claims. So Peru is home to the largest population of tacuras in South America. In 2008, it was suspected between 9,000 and 12,000 individuals lived among the central Andes Mountains. The Huemul Depression marks the most northern limit of the species distribution, and they can live in altitudes between 3,500 or 1,100 to 5,000 or 16,000 feet, and at lower altitudes within their range, they might share the territories with the Peruvian white-tailed deer, which are also endemic to the region. In Argentina, Tarucas are found about 2,000 meters or 6,600 feet to 3,000 meters or 9,800 feet. They occupy grasslands marked by the occasional shrubs and rocky outcrops, typically near water. There's not really any typical, recognized subspecies these days. So I've got another one here. Let's have a look at the female. So diet and behavior. So Tarucas are mainly found in rocks, slopes, quirinal forests, and the Puna grasslands at the side of glacial lakes and high-altitude mountain terrains. Despite living in grasslands, these guys feed mainly on local bushes, shrubs, and herbs for much of the year, but supplement their diet with grasses during the raining season. Plants that are often eaten are dwarf gwentin, ragworts, lupins, siennas, valerians, and club mosses. They also maybe feed on agricultural crops such as alfalfa, barley, and potato plants. They are gregarious, which means they like to live in herds, but not in stable herds, with individuals moving between groups of up to 30 members each over the course of a few days. The populations are scattered due to their need for a relatively specialised habitat, with population densities as low as about 0.15 per kilometre squared, even away from human settlement. Individual groups are typically led by females, and during breeding season, males will compete with one another, displaying quite, aggressively, displaying threatening behaviour by raising their forelimbs one at a time and pointing their antlers towards one another. And let's have a look at the baby and talk about the reproduction. Let's have a look at you. So the rut lasts from May to July, during which the deer segregates into smaller groups with a single adult male. Males drop their antlers immediately after breeding season finishes, and in September, with a new pair beginning to grow in December and losing their velvet by February. Pregnancy in these guys lasts about 240 days, though that a single fawn is born between January and March, coinciding with the raining season. Twins have been observed in captivity, but are rare. The mother leaves the group in order to give birth and keeps the fawn hidden behind rocky outcrops for the first month of their life. So that's quite cool. And they're also considered vulnerable. So I imagine those issues, potentially a disease from, not domestic deer, but other deer, introduced deer. Also, climate change would really impact their mountain habitats, potentially hunting. So those are just my guesses, but that makes sense to me. Those would be the threats that I'd think of. But no, really cool one. Done by GreatCakesMod. How can you love GreatCakesMods? Always a winner. Very, very cool. So last but certainly not least, we're going to be finishing up with one that an animal people have been wanting for a very long while. This is the Chacma Baboon. Let's have a look at you guys. I love this mod. Nice to see some baboons. So these guys, the Chacma Baboon, Papio ursus, was also known as the Cape Baboon. Like all other baboons are from the Old World monkeys. It's also one of the largest of all the monkeys. These guys live primarily in southern Africa. The Chacma baboon has a variety of social behaviours, including a dominance hierarchy, collective foraging, adoption of young by females, and friendship pairings. These behaviours form parts of its complex evolutionary ecology. But in general, though, these species are not threatened, so they're considered least concern. But threats such as human population pressures has put conflict between humans and baboons. Hunting, trapping, and accidents kill or remove many baboons from the wild, therefore reducing their numbers and disrupting their social structures. So due to hybridization between different species of baboons across Africa, they've occasionally grouped the entire radiation to the single species, the Hamadryas baboon, but arbitrary boundaries have used to separate populations of the subspecies. Authors once considered the Chacma baboon a subspecies of the yellow baboon, but now it is recognized as its own species. The Chacma baboon itself actually has 3 subspecies, which is classified as followed, which listed 2 or 3 in this article. So the nominate subspecies is the Cape Chacma, so this is what I think this one is. No, this is the grey-footed Chacma. So actually what's really cool about this mod, they all are kind of based on different species. That's the Cape one. So where's the other one? Grey-footed. Yeah, there's the Cape. So this is the Cape subspecies. Not really like huge differences between them. They're mainly differentiated in size and color. So the Cape one is a large, heavy, dark brown and has black feet. So that's kind of how you can tell this larger species apart, subspecies apart. So this one's called, the Cape subspecies is Pacis ursus. So this is the type subspecies. There's also the grey-footed Chacma. Let's see if we can spot that one. The grey-footed. Is that you? That's the Cape one. That's the Rucana one. This is the grey-footed Chacma baboon. So this is called Grenapsids. These guys are found in northern South Africa and southern Zambia. These guys, the grey-footed ones, these guys are smaller than the Cape Chacma ones, lighter in colour, have grey feet, which are they get the name the grey-coloured. And the Rucana ones, which are the smallest, let's see if we'll find them here. It's another grey-footed. There we go. This one here, the one that's in the smaller one. So these ones are the smallest, appear to be smaller, with less darkly coloured version of the Cape one. So that's kind of the way you tell them apart. So it's very interesting, of course. Very, very cool. Okay. So these guys are found in Namibia and southern Angola, but these guys are actually not accepted by all authorities. They might just be, a different population. So depending on who you ask about these ones. Have a look at this wonderful male. In terms of physical description, they're actually perhaps the longest species of monkey. They reach an adult body length of about 50 to 115 centimeters, or about 20 to 45 inches, with a tail length of about 45 to 84 centimeters, or 18 to 33 inches. It's also one of the heaviest. Males weigh between 21 to 45 kilograms, or 46 to 99 pounds, with an average of being about 31 kilograms, or 70 pounds. They're also sexually dimorphic, with females being considerably smaller than the males. An adult female Chacma weighs between 12 to 25 kilograms, or 26 to 55 pounds, and an average about 15 kilograms, which is about, with adult males sometimes being twice as long and 3 times as heavy as the females. They're similar in size to the olive baboon, being slightly heavier, and actually similar weight to the more compact mandrill, where the males weigh on average about 1 kilo more than a Chacma baboon. The females weigh 3 kilos less than a female Chacma baboon. While the mandrill is usually crowned as the largest of all modern monkeys, growing on total length as average maximum body weight between the sexes, the Chacma baboon actually appears to be the... So based on averages and lengths and stuff, it's actually the largest extant monkey. The Chacma baboon, as I mentioned, generally dark brown in colour, dark brown or grey, with a patch of rough hair on the nape. Unlike the males of the northern baboon subspecies, so things like the Guinea baboon, the olive baboon, and the Hamadryas baboon, these guys do not have a mane. And perhaps its most distinctive feature of this baboon is its long, downward sloping face. It kind of gets its name, Ursus, because it's very bear-like in that regard. The canine teeth on a male Chacma baboon range between 3.8 to 0.3 centimeters, or about 1.5 to 2.12 inches, by the time they emerge from the natal herd, and this is the time of greatest tooth length as the teeth wear down and all broken thereafter. So in terms of habitat, these guys live in a wide variety of different habitats, including woodlands, savannas, steppe, and scrub, from the grassy alpine slopes of the Dannesberg to the Kalahari Desert. During the night, they sleep atop steep hills, high cliffs, or rocks, or in large trees, away from nocturnal predators. In the day, though, water availability may limit their range in arid areas. It is found throughout southern Africa, ranging from South Africa north of Angola, Zambia, and Mozambique, and the species, as mentioned, divide against these ranges. So the Cape one is found in southern Africa. The grey-footed Chacma is found in northern South Africa along the Okavango Delta, also in Botswana, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and southern Zambia, and the Rucana Chacma is found in northern Namibia and southern Angola. In terms of their diets, these guys are omnivores and highly opportunistic feeders, and will pretty much eat anything that typical foods, anything, they're on that seafood diet, there's seafood, they'll try and eat it. See if we can find one of the females so we can talk about them. There we go. So you can see that sexual dimorphism. So typical foods include fruits, seeds, grasses, blossoms, bulbs, bark, insects, spiders, worms, grubs, rodents, bugs, small antelope, and fungi, including the desert truffle. Chacma Baboon's diet is thought to be about 2% animal protein, most of which is invertebrates, but that does vary between populations. Baboons are considered vermin by most African farmers due to the foraging and damage they do to cultivated crops and livestock. On the Cape of Good Hope in particular, they are known for taking shellfish and other small marine invertebrates. It is generally a scavenger when it comes to game meat, though it rarely engages in hunting larger animals. There has been one incident of a Chacma baboon killing a human infant being reported, but the event is rare. The locals believe it was due to witchcraft. Normally, wild Chacma baboons will flee at the approach of humans, though it is changing due to easy availability of food and garbage. And they get too used to people, because they're, finding food near people. They get too used to people and may eventually start fighting and biting people. That's why you always try to make sure these guys don't have access to human rubbish as well. Let's see if we can spot a female. Another female, there we go. Pretty cool. Anyway, so despite their formidable nature and large size, these guys are vulnerable to a variety of predators. Their main predator is the leopard, with about 20% of leopard kills being, Chacma baboons, and about 18% of the prey's biomass. Other previously little documented ones are the African wild dog, which are actually maybe same size or slightly smaller than male baboons. So they're actually part of their main prey as well. But also lions, spotted hyena, Nile crocodiles, and even rock pythons have been known to kill these guys. The predators of infant and juvenile Chacma baboons are even more diverse but poorly documented. They include martial and virtuous eagle, and also potentially crowned and tawny eagles may take young. While approaching generally potentially dangerous sites such as waterholes, more vulnerable members of the group may travel near the rear of the group, but may conversely end up at the front of the group if the predator approaches. The adult male Chacma baboon has a fearsome defense and may assault the predators with their large-shaped canine teeth, which can severely injure even animals like leopards, and the adult males tend to be the less vulnerable members of the troop. As in other monkeys, the larger, more formidable male baboons may successfully defend more vulnerable members of the troop by attacking predators that come into sight. So that's very interesting as well. And as we talked about, they do have a complex social hierarchy. So the Chacma baboon usually lives in social groups called troops, which has multiple adult males, females, and their offspring. However, very small groups that consist of only a single male and several adult females. They have a dominance hierarchy. So female ranking within the troop is inherent through the mother and remains relatively fixed, while the male ranking is often in flux, especially when the dominant male is replaced. So Chacmas are actually usual among baboons, as neither males nor females form strong relationships with the members of the same sex. Instead, the strongest social bonds are often between unrelated adult male and females. Infanticide is also more common among Chacmas and other baboon subspecies, as numerally dominant males will often kill infant and young baboons, sired by the previous dominant male. And they have quite complex groups, so they have morning dispersal patterns. They sleep in large groups in the morning, in tall trees, as we mentioned before. The morning dispersal is synchronized, with all members leaving at the same time. In most cases, it's initiated by a single individual, and the other groups decide, if they want to follow or not. At least 5 followers must be recruited for a successful dispersal initiation, and not all of them are successful. Surprisingly, the initiator's dominant status shows little correlation in the success, so it doesn't matter how we rank. One study actually shows a dispersal rate attempts is relatively consistent across all sexes, with males being more likely to attempt initiation than females, and lactating females are less likely to attempt it than females without offspring. A separate study also had slightly different results, but that seems to be... While dominance hierarchy does not play a significant role in these dispersals, the social affliction does. So play in the species is quite important, as well as grooming behavior, so that kind of to the relationship. In terms of foraging behavior, dominance does play a role in those foraging decisions. A dominant individual will lead the group to easily monopolize resources. The group usually follows, even though many subordinate members cannot gain access to that resource, which is interesting as well. And collective foraging behavior with many individuals taking advantage at the same time has been observed, though the behavior is chiefly attributed to shared dietary needs rather than social affiliation. So pregnant females who share similar diet needs are more likely to synchronize their behavior than fertile females. So things like that, it kind of helps them. They also do adopt. So adoption has been observed in Chacma baboons, where if their parents have either been, died or disappeared, where if they're orphaned, too small to take care of themselves, they will be adopted by other members of the group. The individual was not, and all but one orphan was actually adopted, though the individual that was not adopted was 16 months old, was 4 months older than the next orphan, and was old enough to survive on its own. So once you're kind of old enough, it's like, oh yeah, just hard knock. But if you're young enough, the parents will adopt you. Adoption behaviour includes sleeping close to orphan infant, grooming and carrying the orphan, and protecting it from harassment. Both males and females care for infants, and care does not depend on the infant's sex. Additionally, nearly all caretakers are pre-reproductive, only 4 or 5 years old. The two major theories explaining this is kin selection, where they think they may be potentially related to these infants, or parental practice. So raising these young infants actually gives them practice for their own children and increases their reproductive fitness, which I think is quite interesting as well. Very interesting, how the climbing works. Apparently, it's supposed to be much more improved in Planet Zoo 2, so that's going to be very interesting. In terms of friendship, male and female Chacma baboons often form relationships known as friendships, just like people's. The cooperative relationships generally occur between lactating females and adult males. The males are believed to seek out male friendships to gain protection from infanticide. In many baboon species, immigrant alpha males often practice infanticide on the troop. By killing unrelated infants, the male shortens the time he can mate with the females. And a female with dependent offspring generally does not become sexually receptive until she's weaned them off at about 12 months of age. However, a mother is usually sexually reproductive shortly after the death of her offspring. This protection hypothesis has actually been well studied as stress hormones in female baboons during the changes in the male hierarchy. So that does cause a lot of stress. The benefit for friendship to males is less clear. Males are more likely into friendship with females of which he has mated, and indicates they might enter into friendships to protect their offspring and not just protect the female's future reproductive success. These friendships, may play a role in the mating system as well. They've also been observed to compete with each other for male friends, so the females will compete for the males. This may be a result of one male having a high probability of paternity with multiple females. The competition is heavily influenced by the female dominance hierarchy, with dominant displaying subordinate females in friendships in the group. Generally, it was more dominant females attempt to make friends with an individual, which is already a friend of a subordinate female. They reduce grooming and spatial proximity to that male, and potentially leading their offspring to higher risks of infanticide. So yeah, very, very interesting social lives of the baboons. And there's a little baby there. So they have a little go on about, their conservation. So they are considerably concerned. They're doing quite well. So there's not actually much about their reproductive and their babies. We haven't really talked about that. But I guess it's not too different. We kind of already talked about that, I'm not sure about the gestation. 12 months to wean. I imagine their gestation would probably be no more than a year or two. Let's quickly check. What's the gestation period? 1 years, so just 6 months. Yeah, that makes sense. It's about a period of 18 months. Yeah, that makes sense. So about 6 to 12 months. 6 months to be born, 12 months to wean. So that makes sense. Let's have a look at you. Having a little sleepy sleep. Okay. So the Chacma baboon does not rank among threatened animal species. However, in some locations, populations are dwindling due to habitat loss and predation from other protected species, such as lions and leopards. Many troops have become a suburban menace in their search for food, overturning garbage cans and breaking into cars and houses when they can cause a lot of damage. These troops can be dangerous and aggressive and will not hesitate to steal directly from people. These negative encounters have resulted in the baboons being hunted and poisoned by frustrated local residents, and these isolated populations thought to face extinction within the next 10 years. The Chacma is listed as Appendix 2 and may occur in many protected areas across their range. The only area where they are monitored is the Cape Peninsula, where they are protected. Observations of those working hands-on in South Africa's rehabilitation centres have found that the species is damaged by human intervention. Troop structures are influenced over the years a significant loss of numbers have occurred. Because they live near and invade human habitats, urban baboons are regularly shot, poisoned, electrocuted, beaten to death, struck by cars, and captured for research and for medicine. Despite this, aggressors working for the ICN believe there's no major threat that could result in a range-wide decline of the species. So even though they do face all these threats, they live in many different protected areas. they're believed to be doing okay, which is very cool to hear. Which is interesting as well. I'm actually very happy to hear that. Very, very cool. Yeah, there's nothing about, their pregnancy, but I guess 6 months makes sense. Yeah, very, very cool. Very, very happy with this. I like that they Great Cakes did the different subspecies as different variants. I think that's quite cool. Very, very cool mod. Nice to see these Chacma baboons, definitely in game. Very, very cool. So, I think this is a great place to end the video. So, I would like to thank, Lorby for doing all those butterflies. And I'd like to thank GreatCakesMod for the Taruca and the Chacma baboon. Did a very good job with those. So, yeah, I really, really, really hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to get the little bell icon to get notified about anything. So, yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.